Hey, hi Vibe Tribe, I missed you guys. It's a little colder today in New York. Don't worry, my jacket is faux fur. It's not real. No animals harmed here. Okay, so today's topic, if you're new to my channel, go watch some of the earlier videos, or do the one where I said connecting with your vibes, or my introduction one, because this is going to be a little next level today. Okay, so the topic is Squirrels, Vikings, and Dragons, oh my. So there is a 6-hour audiobook just entitled Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. If you're interested in the Vikings and things like that, I highly recommend you go check that out. It flew by. It was so quick. I listened to it in one day. But yeah. So the first thing I want to talk about is Ratatoskr. So Ratatoskr is this squirrel, and in the Norse mythology, he sends messages up and down the world tree. I love this because I'm Year of the Rat, and rats and squirrels are kind of like rats with very fluffy tails. But yeah, so that made me really curious about it. He would bring messages back and forth between the eagle and the serpent. So the serpent lived at the bottom of the world tree, and the eagle lived at the top, and they had a beef. So, so obviously each two has their own connotation and stuff, but I'll get into the serpent more later. And so I was curious because also I've had this squirrel, like, New York, we have some squirrels, but like where I live is almost clean, so it's really there's not a lot of wildlife. So there's been a squirrel that's been coming to my window, first time in my whole life, and he's been coming around like every couple days, and he came around this morning too, and it was just super weird. So I'm like, yes, squirrel, okay. So I looked up the mythology behind like the totem or the spirit guide of the squirrel, and basically they're all about gathering resources. They're very agile and quick and playful. They also do have something to do with your shadow aspects. I don't know if this goes back to this Ratatoskr, but who also was very close with Loki. They said Loki knew him more than any of the other gods. So yeah, he asks us to deal with our shadow aspects. They're highly perceptive. They can change directions quickly. And they can also, it can kind of be like an early warning system, the symbol of the squirrel. Also gratitude, be thankful for your nut. And yeah, communication. So those are all things that have to do with the squirrel. And yeah, so that came to me. Also, okay, so with the Vikings, they have this whole 9 worlds thing, which are all connected to this big world tree. I really think it's not interesting that they had 9 worlds, and we're talking about the Vikings being in 9 dimensions. So yeah, I actually went through all of them. I was actually told not to share this because who knows which realm they saw as which, but let's say the Vikings are real, and let's say that they do have their own realm. Their framework of the different worlds, which do include worlds that have like elves and worlds that have like, and it's interesting too, because Midgard, where the humans live, is not considered 3D to the Vikings. They consider us to live in 5D already, so that's kind of cool too. What else? Yeah, so then they have realms that have like ice and mist, and then like, you can make a lot of parallels between the different dimensional planes and these worlds. Like, for example, a lot of Andromedan races have that mist, like my Andromedan, she's mist from the knees down. They could see maybe the Amazons and say, oh, those were the frost giants, or they could have, anyway, it's just interesting to see how we receive that through them. I do also, I don't know if I just mentioned, I think that Loki is Mercury. I think the trickster aspect of it really lines up very well. Oh, and yeah, so I also found it was really interesting. So with the Greek mythology, they killed Kronos and everyone came out of Kronos. Well, in the Norse mythology, there was a giant called Ymir, and they killed him and the world came out of this giant, like all the different races and everything came out of this giant. But what was interesting, and I know this is going to be gruesome, but my Scorpio rising likes it, they kind of stabbed him to death. And so out of his blood, and they mentioned the blood was this where the seas were formed and everything. So you got to think about bloodlines. This is all part of what they were trying to send us in the message. So what else did I want to say about the Vikings? Obviously the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. How do you not see parallels between what's going on now and that? And then, there's this story of Tyr. It's a little bit tiny R roll there. This was the one that hit me the most out of all the Viking stories, and this has to do with Loki's children. So Loki had 3 children. One was Hel, who's half human, half corpse, and she's like the ruler of Hell. Then he also had the Midgard serpent, the serpent that went around the whole entire world. That was also related to Loki's child. And then the last one was this wolf. I think I'm forgetting the name of the wolf right now. Might have been Griamore or something. And so when he came to them, he was a little puppy, because they knew something was going to happen with these children, and they asked Odin, what are we going to do about these weird children? So he was a puppy, and Odin's son, Tyr, took care of the puppy. And they fed him, and he kind of grew a bond with him. But the puppy was a wolf, and represented like the lower aspects of human nature. So he was pride, and he was ferocity, and he was just like, so every time they try to put this wolf in chains, he was like, oh, like he was really, really, I can break your chains, like wild, because that's what he represented. And the Vikings had this whole thing where, good is good and evil is evil, and we can't allow this. So they hatched this whole plot to bind the wolf forever, and they used magic and stuff. But the wolf was smart, and he was like, look, if you're gonna do this to me, I'm gonna need like a fail-safe. So, so none of them wanted to do this, basically put their hand in the wolf's mouth. The one who did it was Odin's son, Tyr, which is interesting also because his name has a T, but the T looks like an up arrow. In my little language thing that I've been channeling, T is framework for ascension. We've always linked this with 7, but this is going to change soon. Anyway, so he put his hand in the wolf's mouth, because he's like, oh, well, we're buddies, whatever. And basically as a failsafe, and then what happened, of course, is they did use trickery with the wolf, and they bound him with magic, and they didn't let him out afterwards, and the wolf bit off his hand. So that really was like, oh, well, he couldn't help it. He's a wolf. Like, he couldn't help being wild. Like, maybe the I don't think that how they handled it was right. He even said, the wolf said, like, yo, if you just let me be, I would have been cool. I would have defended you guys. Like, why'd you have to do this? Why'd you have to bind me up? But the lower nature of humanity, sometimes you kind of sort of have to do that. Otherwise, things do tend to go wrong. But this was a theme throughout the whole Viking thing, was how they dealt with anything they considered evil or wrong. They kind of just separated it and shoved it under a table and were like, this is the enemy, we don't need anything to do with it. And the wolf, because the other interesting thing about the Viking mythology is they have Ragnarok, so the end of days. So the wolf stays bound until the end of days. And then the other main beef is, so Odin eventually faces down the wolf at Ragnarok. And then Thor ends up facing down the serpent at Ragnarok. So yeah, that's enough of a background. If you want to watch more about that and get more into that, I absolutely encourage you. It's so interesting. And what else? So now I'm going to do more about the dragon. So it's my personal opinion that the dragon and the serpent are related. In the framework that I've been using, the dragon is the next realm beyond the Vikings. A lot of us already are activating some of our dragon, our Draco, This is not necessarily in order, but they're so prevalent in our, like, they've made us, like, with David Icke and everything, they've made themselves known to us. We know that we have reptilian roots. So a lot of people who have integrated some of their other aspects, and even a lot of people who haven't yet, are connected to this dragon, and their dragon is woke, but maybe the rest of their stream isn't woke, and those are some angry people sometimes, because they have this anger, and this is what I was feeling this week, this anger with the government and the way things are organized, and just like, why? Like, why is it like this on this planet? Why is everyone asleep, you know? And, so yeah, so anyway, so a few months ago, or not even, a couple months ago, I went on this whole journey where I found my dragon, because I had a dragon friend that wasn't my dragon aspect, but my dragon was in cryo sleep, which some of your aspects may be sleeping still. And I guess my becoming conscious of all of this helped to wake it up. So I have a white dragon. She's like very, almost like rainbow iridescent, and this is the thing, when you first contact your guides too, they'll feel like super, super duper strong. And I was almost scared of that energy for a little while. I'm like, whoa. So eventually I was like, you know what, I really should talk to her more. Let me get to know her better. So the other day, I was like, let me just see what she's up to. So it's kind of observing and whatever, and as I'm doing this, I'm kind of aware that I'm her tail. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but all of this sounds crazy. So this made a lot of sense to me, because you know how animals chase their tail? This is because the tail is independently conscious. It's their connection to their whole root of their spirit tree. Like, anyway. So she's like, oh, I always knew there was something different about you. Looking at her tail, talking to me through her tail, she realizes that I'm not her tail exactly. But anyway, this was a great framework of connection to kind of establish that link. And it was fun to be a tail. So yeah. Anyway, so we started to bond a little bit, and she's not happy with how things are down here, and she wasn't even aware of any of this what's going on here. So don't think that all dragons or all Drinkos or all reptilians are evil, because some of them have no idea what's happening here. Okay. Yeah, ask all your guides, ask them for help here. We need it. We do. We need help going through this ascension process. And integrating. So ask your guides for help with all this that we're going through now. And then I'm not gonna say too much about our mission with the Vikings and what's gonna happen, but my guides are calling it Project Mistletoe, which is adorable for Christmas. And it's kind of secret, but they're also saying, like, it's done already, so we really don't have to worry about that. So it has to do with the number 7, and how 7, historically, with the septuagenary cycle, has been linked to Jesus and has been linked to self-sacrifice. And this goes all throughout the Viking mythology, too. Like with Tyr. I think the way that how the wolf ate the hand went to the serpent, and the serpent became the dragon. Like, it's all linked. Like, Thor and Loki, it's linked. I can't say too much about this. I'll talk more about it in the future. But, so, we're gonna see that dynamic of self-sacrifice change into more one of integration and triangulation, which has already been done, so don't worry about it. Loki works in both directions of time. And then I had one other thing I want to talk to you guys about, which I watched this other guy called Arcturus Ra, and he has this one video where he talks about his near-death experience and coming back from near-death. And he says that when he died, he started to go to the white light, but then he looked with discernment and he felt with his heart and to see if this was right. And something about it just felt very off. So once he was like, I don't know about this, it was like the lights went boop, boop, and fizzled out, and then there was this big golden sun, and it was like the sun within himself, and he went through it and had this whole journey. So, I mean, I hope you guys don't have to face that anytime soon, but if you ever do, just make sure you're using your heart before you go right to the white light. Okay, that's it. Oh, that's all I got for now. Project Mistletoe. Shh. Okay, I love you guys. Mwah. Blessings and better tomorrows. Bye.